Hi, welcome to Anaprime Recap. You return to school after summer break and find your teacher completely freaked out. His soul had been sucked into a bizarre rag doll that has nails for teeth. We are back on the tenebrous journey through the tales of the Junji Ito collection anime. In this video, we will explore some adventures of the character Souichi, a peculiar boy who has paranormal abilities and uses them to make the most diverse diabolical traps on the people around him. We'll start with a short story called Souichi's Convenient Curses. This story begins with the protagonist nailing some sort of voodoo doll to a tree. As the boy hammered the nails on the other side of town, Uya, his schoolmate, begins to feel a severe stomachache. The next morning, in the classroom, Souichi overhears two girls talking about what happened the night before. They comment that Uya was found passed out on the street and ended up being hospitalized. Hearing this, Souichi smiles and tells himself that that boy was very cocky and needed a lesson. Meanwhile, outside, Kuroda and Akiyama are fighting. Apparently, this isn't the first time they've had a falling out. Souichi watches from afar and is already planning his next trap. On the way back home, he finds a frog buried among the dry winter leaves and takes it home, on the pretense that it was too cold in the forest. Upon arriving home, he introduces the new family member and uses the animal to scare his older sister. But he ends up being interrupted by his brother, who makes fun of him by saying that Souichi is an exotic boy. Back in his room, he plans a new curse, which he will cast against another of his colleagues. He goes into the forest in the middle of the night and starts digging a grave, where he buries a doll similar to Kuroda. Souichi orders him to stay there hibernating and leave only when spring arrives. A few days later, some boys from Souichi's class comment that Kuroda hasn't been attending classes anymore. They even question Akiyama about the boy, as he and Kuroda had been fighting the week before. From a distance, Souichi overhears the conversation. What he didn't expect was that the old man who takes care of the forest would interfere in his plans. Seeing a doll nailed to his cedar once more, the old man is possessed with rage and swears to himself that he will find the damn person responsible for doing it. A little further on, the man finds another doll buried and his anger only increases. Soon after, he spots a body buried with its head out. At first he believes he is a dummy, but when he approaches, the old man is startled to discover that he was a teenager who was buried alive. The next morning, that was the main subject at school. Kuroda had been found passed out and buried in a cedar forest. When he woke up in the hospital, the boy said he didn't remember anything about what had happened. Upon hearing this, Souichi becomes very upset. After all, his intention was for Kuroda to leave there only in the spring. But since his plan didn't work, the boy starts to create a new curse. This time, he notices three of his classmates who used to be close friends. The boy notices that Kawai and Ishizaka aren't talking to each other much during their conversation and theorizes that something could have happened between the two. This reason created in his head was enough to make him plot something against Kawai, under the pretense that he would be helping Ishizaka to get revenge on him. That night, at his house, Souichi tries again to scare his sister, this time with a spider he was holding with the help of a pair of chopsticks. Kuchi, his brother, interferes again in this bad joke. The boy slaps the spider and it lands in Souichi's face. The boy tastes his own medicine and gives a hysterical scream. His two older brothers are surprised to find that the youngest is also afraid of spiders. The next day, during class, Souichi uses a pin to skewer a wooden puppet. At that time, Kawai feels a strong stomach ache and asks the teacher to go to the bathroom. Once in the cabin, he realizes that his stomach has stopped hurting and tries to leave to go back to class. However, the door was locked and the boy had to climb out of the opening at the top. But before he could do that, Souichi throws a spider at the wooden puppet and it appears there in the bathroom, where Kawai was. The boy despairs when he sees those giant hairy legs climbing on the door. And to make things worse, the spider begins to wrap him in its web, as if he were an insect. Later, Kawai is found passed out in the bathroom, his entire body wrapped in toilet paper. Souichi approaches Ishizaka and asks if he is satisfied with the result. But Ishizaka interrupts him and says he doesn't know what Souichi is talking about. The protagonist hides. He is embarrassed that Ishizaka caught his attention in front of other students, and plans to get revenge on him. That night, he makes a call to Ishizaka's house and says that the young man has been drawn to win a gift, but he would need to attend Sakurayama Park if he wanted to receive it. Despite knowing that that was Souichi's voice, the boy goes there to find out what his classmate wanted with him. While waiting for him, Ishizaka is surprised by a mysterious creature with giant arms and legs. He is terrified and tries to flee through the forest, but the monster continues to chase him, until one of the creature's legs gets caught in a trap. The old man who guarded the forest spread traps everywhere in order to capture the person responsible for nailing dolls to his cedars. Ishizaka discovers that the whole scene was Souichi's work trying to scare him. The boy leaves, leaving the protagonist trapped in the tree. And he still advises him to get out of there soon, before the old man finds him. Minutes later, when Souichi was about to break free, the man arrives with an axe in his hands. The boy even tries to hide, but the old man throws the axe and almost hits his head. The man says that's the price for vandalizing his trees and assures Souichi that he won't make it out of there alive. The boy starts screaming desperately, but luckily for him, Kuchi appears and manages to convince the old man to release his brother. Otherwise, he would denounce him for spreading traps for humans in the forest. Back at home, Souichi refuses to listen to his parents' sermon. Instead, he goes to his room to check on the frog he caught in the woods a few days earlier. The boy opens the box where he had trapped the animal and discovers that the animal was already rotten. It definitely seems impossible to have a happy ending in the hands of this devilish boy. Now we will go to the second story, still starring Souichi, called Cloth Teacher. It's the first day of school and the students are returning from summer break. Professor Yanagita arrives in the room to teach the first class of the day, but there is something strange about him. His face is completely different than it was before the holidays and his mouth is full of nails. During the break, Souichi and Yanagita play with throwing nails at each other. From afar, some students observe and decide to investigate. After all, the Yanagita professor they knew would never participate in this kind of prank. Apart from that, his appearance was more similar to a ragdoll than a person. Wakayama, the class representative, questions Souichi about what he had done to the teacher. The boy tries to run away to avoid being interrogated, but Wakayama pulls him by his shorts and ends up exposing his backside. Souichi even manages to escape, but is furious with his colleague. He then thinks of some way to punish him for the shame he put him through. The next morning, Wakayama notices the presence of hair growing on his face. That was the result of the plague cast by Souichi. At school, all the students make fun of the boy. Seeing that scene, the freaked-out professor decides to shave Wakayama's beard. The boy, of course, tries to run away, but ends up being cornered by Yanagita. When he realizes that there is no way to escape, the boy grabs the professor's legs, who ends up falling and cutting his own finger with the razor. At that time, the man is furious and goes up to Wakayama again, cutting his face. But, luckily for the boy, Professor Soga appears and saves him from that situation. She tells the teacher that the school principal wants to see him in his office right away. Wakayama picks up Yanagita's finger that has fallen to the ground and his suspicions are confirmed. That was not his teacher, but an imposter made of cloth. Later, he and his friends arrange to find Professor Soga so they can come up with a plan to find the real Professor Yanagita. But, to the boy's despair, this time, it was a rag doll trying to impersonate Professor Soga. The monster chases after them and manages to capture Kutra. While trying to kill him with a rope around his neck, Wakayama spots a bonfire and takes the opportunity to make a barbecue with the diabolic rag doll. His plan works and the woman runs away in despair. Then the boys go to Souichi's house to investigate, as he was the only one capable of creating it all. In the basement, they find a puppet similar to Wakayama and soon the boy understands that Souichi had made puppets of his teachers and somehow put them in their place. The boy already knows that he will be the next one, as Souichi had made a doll similar to him. Kota tries to destroy that puppet, but Wakayama prefers to let Souichi go ahead with his plan so they can find out what happened to their real teachers. Souichi makes final preparations for Wakayama's puppet, but his brother arrives just in time and questions the boy about that bizarre puppet. The boy runs away as usual so he doesn't have to explain and the doll goes after him. Then Professor Yanagita's puppet appears and calls Souichi to play with the nails. Souichi denies it and says that there is something more interesting waiting for him. In the schoolyard, Wakayama is losing his strength. That damn doll has already started to suck his soul. The monstrous teacher is about to catch him when the boy's puppet runs past her. She runs after him and destroys him, saying he was the one who set her face on fire. Soon after, Souichi appears running away from Professor Yanagita. The puppet continued to shoot nails at the boy. And when he tries to escape by climbing the fence, his rear is exposed again by the creature he created. And this time, the whole school was there to watch that dark scene. In this moment of despair, Souichi cancels his curse and both Professor Yanagita's puppet and Professor Soga's puppet revert to inanimate dolls. That same day, the real teachers were found alive in their homes. And finally, Wakayama managed to get rid of that weird beard. Souichi, on the other hand, was still embarrassed about being exposed to all of his schoolmates. So what did you think of this anime? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more anime recaps. See you next time.